The air was thick with dust as the alien archaeologist brushed away the layers of sand and debris. The ruins were ancient, older than anything they had ever seen. The carvings on the walls were strange, unlike any language or symbol they had studied before. But one thing was clear: the figures depicted in the carvings were not alien. They were human. The archaeologist's heart raced. Humans were a myth, a story told to children to scare them into behaving. If you don't listen, the humans will come for you, parents would say. But here, in this forgotten corner of the galaxy, the carvings told a different story. The humans in the carvings were not monsters. They were heroes. The archaeologist traced the lines of the carvings with their gloved hand. The figures were tall and strong, their faces filled with determination. In one carving, they were fighting a great beast. In another, they were building something massive, something that glowed with light. The archaeologist felt a strange connection to these figures, as if they were calling out to them from across time. Suddenly, a noise broke the silence. The archaeologist froze, their breath catching in their throat. They turned slowly, their flashlight cutting through the darkness. The beam of light revealed a shadow moving in the distance. Someone, or something, was watching them. The archaeologist's mind raced. They had been warned not to come here. The ruins were forbidden, off-limits to anyone without special permission. But the archaeologist had always been curious, always willing to risk everything for the truth. Now, that curiosity might cost them their life. The shadow moved closer, and the archaeologist could see the outline of a figure. It was tall, taller than any alien they had ever seen. Its eyes glowed in the darkness, and its voice was low and menacing. "You should not be here," it said. The archaeologist stumbled back, their heart pounding. They had to get out, had to escape. But as they turned to run, they noticed something on the ground. It was a small, metallic object, half buried in the sand. Without thinking, they grabbed it and ran, the shadow close behind. When they finally reached their ship, they collapsed into the pilot's seat, their hands shaking. They looked down at the object in their hand. It was a data crystal, old and worn but still intact. The archaeologist felt a surge of hope. This crystal might hold the answers they were looking for. As the ship lifted off, the archaeologist glanced back at the ruins. The carvings were still visible, their figures glowing in the light of the setting sun. The archaeologist knew they had discovered something important, something that could change everything. But they also knew they were not alone. Someone, or something, was watching them, and they would stop at nothing to keep the truth hidden. The archaeologists sat in their small, dimly lit room aboard the ship, staring at the data crystal they had risked everything to retrieve. The crystal glowed faintly, its surface covered in intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with energy. They knew they had to be careful. If anyone found out what they were doing, it would mean the end of their career, or worse. They inserted the crystal into their portable data reader, their hands trembling with anticipation. The screen flickered to life, displaying lines of text and images that were thousands of years old. The archaeologist's eyes widened as they began to read. The crystal contained records of an ancient war, a conflict so vast and destructive that it had shaped the galaxy as they knew it. The record spoke of humans, not as myths or monsters, but as real beings who had once lived and fought alongside other races. They were described as brave, resourceful, and fiercely loyal. But the records also spoke of a great betrayal. The humans had been betrayed by one of their own allies, a race that had turned against them out of fear and jealousy. The archaeologist's heart ached as they read about the final battle. The humans had fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered and outmatched. In the end, they had sacrificed themselves to save the galaxy, using their advanced technology to seal away a great evil. But the cost had been high. The humans had disappeared, their existence erased from history. The archaeologist leaned back in their chair, their mind racing. They had always believed that humans were nothing more than a story, a cautionary tale. But now, they were faced with the truth. Humans had been real, and they had been heroes. The archaeologist felt a deep sense of loss, as if they had just discovered a part of themselves that had been missing all along. But there was more. The crystal also contained coordinates to a hidden location, a place where the humans had stored their greatest secrets. The archaeologist knew they had to go there, had to see it for themselves. But they also knew it would be dangerous. The forbidden archives were heavily guarded, and accessing them without permission was punishable by death. That night, the archaeologist made their way to the archives, their heart pounding with every step. The building was massive, its walls lined with ancient texts and artifacts. The air was thick with the scent of dust and decay. The archaeologist moved quickly, their footsteps echoing in the empty halls. They found the section they were looking for, a hidden room deep within the archives. The door was sealed, but the archaeologist had come prepared. They used a small device to bypass the lock, their hands steady despite the fear coursing through their veins. Inside the room, they found what they were looking for, a holographic map of the galaxy, marked with the coordinates from the data crystal. The map showed a hidden planet, a place that had been erased from all known records. The archaeologist felt a surge of excitement. This was it. This was where they would find the truth. But as they were about to leave, they heard a noise behind them. They turned slowly, their hearts sinking as they saw a figure standing in the doorway. It was the same figure they had seen in the ruins, its eyes glowing in the darkness. "You should not be here," the figure said, its voice cold and menacing. The archaeologist's mind raced. They had to think fast. They grabbed the holographic map and ran, the figure close behind. They dodged through the maze of shelves and artifacts, their breath coming in short gasps. They could hear the figure's footsteps behind them, getting closer with every second. Just as they reached the exit, the figure lunged at them. The archaeologist ducked, narrowly avoiding the attack. They stumbled out into the night, their heart pounding as they ran towards their ship. They didn't look back. They couldn't. As the ship lifted off, the archaeologist glanced down at the holographic map in their hands. They knew they were risking everything, but they also knew they had no choice. The truth about humans was out there, waiting to be discovered. And they were going to find it, no matter the cost. The archaeologist's ship soared through the dark void of space, its engines humming softly. The holographic map glowed on the control panel, its coordinates pointing to a hidden planet far beyond the reaches of known space. But the archaeologist knew they weren't safe yet. The figure from the forbidden archives, and whoever they worked for, would be coming after them. As if on cue, the ship's sensors blared an alarm. A larger vessel had appeared on the radar, closing in fast. The archaeologist's hands tightened on the controls. They had to think quickly. They couldn't outrun the larger ship, but maybe they could outsmart it. They steered the ship towards a nearby asteroid field, weaving through the jagged rocks with skill born of desperation. The larger ship followed, its weapons firing blasts of energy that narrowly missed the archaeologist's ship. The archaeologist's heart pounded as they dodged and weaved, their ship scraping against the asteroids. Just a little further, they muttered to themselves, their eyes fixed on the map. The hidden planet was still far away, but there was a rebel outpost nearby. If they could reach it, they might find allies, or at least a place to hide. The larger ship fired again, this time hitting the archaeologist's ship. The impact sent sparks flying across the control panel, and the ship lurched violently. The archaeologists struggled to regain control, their hands shaking as they fought to keep the ship steady. Finally, they broke free of the asteroid field, the larger ship still in pursuit. The rebel outpost was just ahead, a small station orbiting a barren moon. The archaeologists sent out a distress signal, hoping someone would hear it. To their relief, a voice crackled over the comms. This is Rebel Outpost Delta 7. Identify yourself. The archaeologist hesitated for a moment, then replied, I'm an archaeologist. I have information about humans. I need your help. There was a pause, and then the voice said, Dock at Bay 3. We'll meet you there. The archaeologist guided the ship into the docking bay, their hearts still racing. As the ship came to a stop, they grabbed the holographic map and the data crystal, stuffing them into a bag. They didn't know what to expect, but they knew they had no other choice. The docking bay doors opened, and a group of rebels stepped inside. They were armed, their faces stern but curious. The leader, a tall alien with scars across their face, stepped forward. You said you have information about humans, the leader said, their voice low and cautious. The archaeologist nodded, holding up the data crystal. This contains records of an ancient war. Humans were real. They were heroes. And they left something behind, something important. The rebels exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of disbelief and hope. The leader stepped closer, their eyes narrowing. If you're lying, you won't leave this station alive. I'm not lying, the archaeologist said, their voice steady. I've seen the carvings, the records. Humans existed, and they sacrificed themselves to save the galaxy. But there's more. They left something behind, a hidden planet. I have the coordinates. The leader studied the archaeologist for a moment, then nodded. All right. We'll help you. But if this is a trap, you'll regret it. The archaeologist felt a surge of relief. They had found allies, people who believed in the truth as much as they did. But they also knew the danger wasn't over. The larger ship was still out there, and it wouldn't be long before it found them. As the rebels led the archaeologist deeper into the outpost, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The figure from the Forbidden Archives was still out there, and they would stop at nothing to keep the truth hidden. The rebel outpost was a maze of dimly lit corridors and crowded rooms, filled with aliens of all shapes and sizes. The archaeologist followed the scarred leader through the bustling station, their bag clutched tightly to their chest. The rebels eyed them with curiosity and suspicion, but no one stopped them. Finally, they reached a small room at the heart of the outpost. The leader gestured for the archaeologist to sit, then leaned against the wall, their arms crossed. Start talking, they said. What do you know about humans? The archaeologist took a deep breath and began to explain. They spoke of the ancient ruins, the carvings, and the data crystal. They described the records of the ancient war and the human sacrifice. As they spoke, the rebels listened intently, their expressions shifting from skepticism to awe. When the archaeologist finished, there was a long silence. Finally, the leader spoke. We've heard stories about humans, they said. But we always thought they were just legends. If what you're saying is true, it changes everything. The archaeologist nodded. It does. But we need to act quickly. The people who are after me, they don't want this truth to come out. They'll do whatever it takes to stop us. The leader frowned. Who are they? I don't know, the archaeologist admitted. But they're powerful. They have access to the Forbidden Archives, and they're willing to kill to protect their secrets. The leader exchanged glances with the other rebels, then nodded. All right. We'll help you. But this isn't just about finding the hidden planet. This is about uncovering the truth, and making sure it's never buried again. Over the next few days, the archaeologist worked closely with the rebels. They shared the coordinates from the holographic map, and the rebels began planning their journey to the hidden planet. The archaeologist also spent time getting to know the rebels, learning about their struggles and their hopes for the future. One rebel, a young alien with bright eyes and a quick smile, became particularly close to the archaeologist. They often stayed up late, talking about the humans and what their existence might mean for the galaxy. If humans were real, the young rebel said one night, then maybe there's still hope for us. Maybe we can be heroes too. The archaeologist smiled, feeling a sense of camaraderie they hadn't felt in a long time. But their peace was short-lived. One evening, as they were reviewing the holographic map, the outpost's alarms blared. "We're under attack," someone shouted. The archaeologist's heart sank. They rushed to the control room, where the rebels were frantically trying to defend the station. On the view screen, they saw the larger ship from before, its weapons trained on the outpost. "It's them," the archaeologist whispered. "They found us." The leader barked orders, and the rebels scrambled to their positions. The archaeologist felt a surge of guilt. They had brought this danger to the rebels, and now they were paying the price. As the battle raged outside, the archaeologist made a decision. They couldn't let the rebels suffer because of them. They grabbed the holographic map and the data crystal and headed for the docking bay. If they could draw the attackers away, maybe the rebels would have a chance. But as they reached the bay, the young rebel appeared, blocking their path. "Where are you going?" they demanded. "I have to leave," the archaeologist said. "It's the only way to protect you." The young rebel shook their head. "You're not doing this alone. We're in this together, remember?" The archaeologist hesitated, then nodded. Together, they boarded a small, fast ship and prepared to launch. As the bay doors opened, they saw the larger ship turning towards them. "Hold on," the young rebel said, gripping the controls. "This is going to be rough." The ship shot out of the bay, weaving through the chaos of the battle. The larger ship pursued them, its weapons firing relentlessly. The archaeologist held on tightly, their heart pounding as they dodged and weaved through the explosions. Finally, they broke free of the battle, the larger ship still in pursuit. The young rebel set a course for the hidden planet, their hands steady on the controls. "We're not turning back," they said. "Not now." The archaeologist felt a surge of determination. They were closer than ever to uncovering the truth about humans, and they weren't going to let anything stop them. The ship emerged from hyperspace, and the hidden planet came into view. It was a beautiful world, covered in lush forests and sparkling oceans. But there was something strange about it, something that made the archaeologist's skin crawl. The planet felt alive. The young rebel guided the ship through the atmosphere, their eyes wide with wonder. "It's incredible," they said. "I've never seen anything like it." The archaeologist nodded, their heart racing with anticipation. They had come so far, risked so much, and now they were finally here. But they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. As the ship descended, they noticed something unusual. The planet's surface was dotted with strange structures, tall, metallic towers that seemed to hum with energy. The archaeologist recognized them from the carvings in the ruins. These were human structures. They landed the ship near one of the towers, its surface covered in intricate patterns that glowed faintly in the sunlight. The archaeologist and the young rebel stepped out, their boots sinking into the soft grass. The air was warm and filled with the scent of flowers, but there was an eerie silence that made the archaeologist uneasy. "Where is everyone?" the young rebel asked, their voice barely above a whisper. The archaeologist shook their head. "I don't know. But we need to be careful. There's something about this place." They approached the tower, their footsteps echoing in the silence. As they got closer, they noticed a door at the base of the tower. It was sealed, but the archaeologist recognized the symbols on it from the data crystal. They pulled out the crystal and inserted it into a slot next to the door. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a loud groan, the door began to open. The archaeologist and the young rebel exchanged glances, their hearts pounding. They stepped inside, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The interior of the tower was vast, filled with strange machines and holographic displays. The archaeologist felt a sense of awe as they explored the room, their hands brushing against the ancient technology. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. In the center of the room was a large holographic console. The archaeologist approached it, their fingers trembling as they activated it. The console flickered to life, displaying a message in a language they didn't recognize. But as they watched, the message began to change, shifting into a language they could understand. "Welcome, traveler," the message said. "You have found the last sanctuary of the humans. This is a place of knowledge and hope, but also of warning. The enemy we fought long ago still exists, and they will return. You must be ready." The archaeologist's heart sank. They had hoped to find answers, but instead, they had found a warning. The young rebel stepped closer, their eyes wide with fear. "What does it mean?" they asked. Before the archaeologist could answer, the console displayed a new message. "To unlock the secrets of this sanctuary, you must prove your worth. Only those who understand the value of sacrifice and unity may proceed." The archaeologist frowned. "What does that mean?" As if in response, the room began to change. The walls shifted, revealing hidden passages and new holographic displays. The archaeologist and the young rebel exchanged glances, their hearts racing. They knew they had to move quickly. They followed the passages deeper into the tower, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The air grew colder, and the silence became oppressive. Finally, they reached a large chamber, its walls covered in carvings and symbols. In the center of the chamber was a pedestal, and on it rested a small, glowing object. The archaeologist approached it cautiously, their heart pounding. As they got closer, they realized what it was, a key, but not just any key. It was a key to something much larger, something that could change the galaxy forever. But as they reached for the key, the ground beneath them began to shake. The young rebel grabbed their arm, their eyes wide with fear. "What's happening?" The archaeologist didn't answer. They knew what was coming. The enemy, the ancient enemy the humans had warned about, was here. The ground shook violently, and the walls of the chamber seemed to close in around them. The archaeologist grabbed the glowing key from the pedestal, its light pulsing in their hand like a heartbeat. The young rebel clung to their arm, their eyes wide with fear. "What's happening?" the young rebel shouted over the noise. "I don't know," the archaeologist replied, their voice trembling. "But we need to get out of here, now." They turned to run, but before they could take a step, a deep, rumbling voice filled the chamber. "You should not have come here." The archaeologist froze, their blood turning to ice. The voice was cold and menacing, echoing through the chamber as if it came from everywhere at once. They turned slowly, their flashlights scanning the room. In the shadows, they saw movement, a figure, tall and imposing, its eyes glowing with a sinister light. It was the same figure they had seen in the ruins and the forbidden archives. The young rebels stepped back, their breath coming in short gasps. What is that?" The figure stepped into the light, revealing its true form. It was an alien, but unlike any the archaeologist had ever seen. Its skin was dark and metallic, and its eyes burned with a cold, calculating intelligence. It was the ancient enemy, the one the humans had warned about. "You have awakened something you cannot control," the figure said, its voice dripping with malice. "The humans thought they could defeat us, but they were wrong. And now, you will pay for their arrogance." The archaeologist's mind raced. They had to think fast. They clutched the key tightly, feeling its warmth in their hand. "We're not afraid of you," they said, their voice shaking but determined. "The humans sacrificed themselves to stop you, and we'll do the same if we have to." The figure laughed, a sound that sent chills down the archaeologist's spine. "You are brave, I'll give you that. But bravery will not save you." Before the archaeologist could react, the figure raised its hand, and a blast of energy shot towards them. The young rebel pushed them out of the way, the blast narrowly missing them. They hit the ground hard, the key slipping from their grasp and skidding across the floor. "Run!" the young rebel shouted, pulling the archaeologist to their feet. They scrambled towards the exit, the figure close behind. The chamber was collapsing around them, chunks of the ceiling falling to the ground. The archaeologist grabbed the key as they ran, their heart pounding in their chest. As they reached the passage, the figure's voice echoed behind them. "You cannot escape. The galaxy will fall, just as it was meant to." They didn't look back. They ran as fast as they could, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The passage seemed to go on forever, but finally, they saw light ahead. They burst out of the tower, the fresh air hitting them like a wave. But they weren't safe yet. The ground was still shaking, and the tower was collapsing behind them. They ran towards their ship, the young rebel helping the archaeologist climb inside. As the ship lifted off, they looked back at the tower, now crumbling into dust. The figure was gone, but the archaeologist knew it wasn't over. The enemy was still out there, and they had to warn the galaxy. As the ship soared into the sky, the young rebel turned to the archaeologist. "What do we do now?" The archaeologist looked down at the key in their hand, its light still pulsing softly. "We find the humans," they said. "If they're still out there, they're our only hope." The ship soared through the vastness of space, its engines humming softly. The archaeologist sat in the pilot's seat, staring at the glowing key in their hand. Its light pulsed steadily, as if it were alive. The young rebel sat beside them, their eyes fixed on the stars outside. "Where do we even start?" the young rebel asked, breaking the silence. The archaeologist sighed. "The humans left clues, coordinates, symbols, something. We just have to figure out where to look." They activated the holographic map, its glowing line spreading out across the control panel. The map showed the galaxy, with the hidden planet marked in red. But there were other points of interest, strange symbols and coordinates that the archaeologist had noticed earlier. "These symbols," the archaeologist said, pointing to one of them. "They match the carvings in the ruins. I think they're a trail left by the humans." The young rebel leaned closer, their eyes narrowing. "So we follow the trail?" The archaeologist nodded. "We follow the trail." Their first stop was a distant star system, home to a barren moon. According to the map, the moon held another clue. As they approached, the archaeologist felt a sense of unease. The moon was desolate, its surface covered in craters and dust. But there was something about it, something that made their skin crawl. They landed the ship near a large crater, its edges jagged and sharp. The archaeologist and the young rebel stepped out, their boots crunching on the rocky ground. The air was thin and cold, and the silence was deafening. "This place gives me the creeps," the young rebel said, their voice barely above a whisper. The archaeologist nodded. "Stay close." They made their way to the center of the crater, where they found a strange structure, a small, metallic dome covered in symbols. The archaeologist recognized the symbols from the data crystal. They approached the dome cautiously, their heart pounding. As they got closer, the dome began to hum, its surface glowing faintly. The archaeologist reached out, their fingers brushing against the symbols. Suddenly, the dome opened, revealing a small compartment inside. Inside the compartment was a holographic message. The message flickered to life, displaying the image of a human. The archaeologist's breath caught in their throat. It was the first time they had seen a human up close. The figure was tall and strong, their face filled with determination. "If you are seeing this," the human said, their voice calm and steady, "then you have found one of our sanctuaries. We left these clues for those who would come after us, those who would continue our fight. The enemy is still out there, and they will return. You must be ready." The message ended, and the dome closed. The archaeologist felt a surge of determination. They were on the right path. Over the next few weeks, they followed the trail, traveling from one star system to another. Each stop revealed a new clue, a holographic message, a piece of technology, or a hidden sanctuary. But each stop also brought new challenges. They faced hostile aliens, treacherous terrain, and the constant threat of the ancient enemy. Through it all, the archaeologist and the young rebel grew closer. They shared stories of their pasts, their hopes, and their fears. The young rebel spoke of their family, who had been killed by the same forces that now hunted them. The archaeologist spoke of their lifelong quest for the truth, and how it had led them here. One night, as they sat in the ship's cockpit, the young rebel turned to the archaeologist. "Do you think we'll find them?" they asked. "The humans, I mean." The archaeologist looked out at the stars, their heart heavy. "I don't know," they admitted. "But even if we don't, we have to keep going. For the humans. For the galaxy." The young rebel nodded, their eyes filled with determination. "Then we keep going." After weeks of searching, the archaeologist and the young rebel arrived at the final set of coordinates. The holographic map had led them to a remote star system, far from any known civilization. As they approached the planet, their hearts raced with anticipation. The planet was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its surface was covered in lush forests, sparkling oceans, and towering mountains. But what caught their attention was the massive structure in the center of the planet, a city, but not like any city they had ever seen. It was made of gleaming metal and glass, its towers reaching high into the sky. "This is it," the archaeologist whispered, their voice filled with awe. "This is where the humans are." They landed the ship on the outskirts of the city, their hands trembling with excitement. As they stepped out, they were greeted by a strange sight: the city was empty. The streets were silent, the buildings abandoned. But there was something about the place that felt alive, as if it were waiting for them. They made their way to the center of the city, where they found a large, domed building. The doors opened as they approached, revealing a vast, glowing chamber. In the center of the chamber was a holographic console, similar to the ones they had seen before. The archaeologist activated the console, and a holographic message appeared. It was the same human they had seen in the previous messages, their face calm and steady. "Welcome," the human said. "If you have found this place, then you have proven your worth. You have followed our trail, faced our challenges, and shown the courage and determination that define us. But now, you must learn the truth." The archaeologist's heart pounded as the human continued. "We, the humans, were once a great civilization. We explored the galaxy, made allies, and fought for peace. But we also made enemies, ancient, powerful enemies who sought to destroy us. In the end, we realized that our greatest strength was not our technology or our armies, but our ability to inspire others." The hologram shifted, showing images of humans working alongside other races, building, creating, and fighting together. "We knew that if we were to survive, we had to disappear. We had to become a myth, a legend that would inspire others to rise up and fight for what is right. And so, we created these sanctuaries, these clues, to guide those who would come after us." The archaeologist felt a surge of emotion. They had spent their life searching for the truth about humans, and now they had found it. But there was more. "The enemy is still out there," the human said. "They will return, and when they do, the galaxy must be ready. You must be ready. Take what we have left you, and use it to unite the galaxy. Only together can you defeat the enemy." The hologram faded, and the chamber was filled with light. The walls shifted, revealing hidden compartments filled with technology, weapons, and knowledge. The hologram faded, and the chamber was filled with light. The walls shifted, revealing hidden compartments filled with technology, weapons, and knowledge. The archaeologist and the young rebel stared in awe, their minds racing. "This is incredible," the young rebel said, their voice filled with wonder. "But, where are the humans? Are they still alive?" The archaeologist shook their head. "I don't think so. They sacrificed themselves to protect the galaxy. But their legacy lives on, in us." As they explored the chamber, they found a final message, etched into the wall. It was a simple phrase, but it filled them with hope: "The galaxy's future is in your hands." The archaeologist and the young rebel returned to the rebel outpost with the technology and knowledge they had found in the human city. The rebels were amazed by what they brought back: advanced weapons, blueprints for starships, and records of human strategies. But most importantly, they brought hope. The archaeologist stood before the rebels, their voice steady and strong. "The humans left us everything we need to fight the ancient enemy. But they also left us a message: the galaxy's future is in our hands. We must unite, not just as rebels, but as a galaxy. Only together can we win this fight." The rebels cheered, their spirits lifted by the archaeologist's words. Over the next few days, they worked tirelessly to prepare for the battle. Ships were repaired, weapons were tested, and alliances were formed. The archaeologist and the young rebel trained alongside the rebels, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. But the peace didn't last. One evening, as the sun set over the outpost, the alarms blared. The ancient enemy had arrived. The archaeologist rushed to the control room, where the rebels were already monitoring the situation. On the view screen, they saw the enemy's fleet, massive, dark ships that blotted out the stars. The archaeologist's heart sank. They had known this day would come, but they hadn't expected it so soon. "This is it," the young rebel said, their voice filled with determination. "We fight for the humans. We fight for the galaxy." The archaeologist nodded. "Let's show them what we're made of." The battle began with a deafening roar. The rebel ships soared into the sky, their weapons firing at the enemy fleet. The archaeologist and the young rebel piloted a small, fast ship, darting between the larger vessels and targeting the enemy's weak points. The sky was filled with explosions and laser fire, the air thick with smoke and chaos. As the battle raged, the archaeologist noticed something strange. The enemy ships were focusing their attacks on the outpost, trying to destroy it. They realized that the enemy wasn't just trying to win the battle, they were trying to erase the humans' legacy. "We have to protect the outpost," the archaeologist shouted over the comms. "If they destroy it, everything the humans left us will be lost." The rebels rallied, forming a defensive line around the outpost. The archaeologist and the young rebel flew through the chaos, their ship weaving between enemy fire. They targeted the enemy's command ship, knowing that if they could take it down, the rest of the fleet would fall. But as they approached the command ship, they were hit. The ship lurched violently, sparks flying across the control panel. The young rebel struggled to regain control, their hands shaking on the controls. "We're not going to make it," the young rebel shouted. The archaeologist looked at them, their heart filled with determination. "Yes, we are. We have to." With a final burst of speed, they reached the command ship. The archaeologist activated the weapons, targeting the ship's core. The young rebel pulled the trigger, and a blast of energy shot towards the enemy ship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a blinding flash of light, the command ship exploded, sending shockwaves through the enemy fleet. The rebel ships cheered over the comms as the enemy fleet began to retreat. The archaeologist and the young rebel watched as the enemy ships disappeared into the darkness. The battle was over. They had won. As they returned to the outpost, the archaeologist felt a surge of emotion. They had done it. They had honored the humans' legacy and protected the galaxy. But they also knew that the fight wasn't over. The ancient enemy would return, and the galaxy would need to stay united. The young rebel turned to the archaeologist, their eyes filled with pride. We did it, they said. For the humans. For the galaxy. The archaeologist smiled. And for the future.